This is the official call to order of the August meeting of the Johnson County Library Board of Director meeting. Any citizen comments that were submitted or that anybody here? All right, moving right along. Any members of the board that want to make a statement or comment?
I would like to. I am very excited to see a fall 22 guide with things to do in person in it. It's very, very exciting. I feel like maybe this is like the last step out of the Cootie Forest. So I'm really excited to see that and some of the highlights of what we are doing and our building plan and explaining the clump and all of that fun stuff and all of our hours. So it's very, very nice. So shout out to the team that actually did the typesetting and making it pretty and all of that, but also to our admin team and everybody who contributed to getting us completely open and serving the public again. So it has been a long, long slog to get here. So yay to everybody for getting that done. So here is to a glorious fall and things to do at the library. Yay.
And David, I just want to say too, I worked the election at the Monticello Library, and I want to give a shout out to the gal who had to get there very, very early to let us in at 6 a.m. and keep letting us in because the doors didn't automatically unlock until 7. But everything went really smoothly, and we sure appreciate their assistance.
All right, well, thank you. I do not have any additional comments at this time, so we will move right along. And then, do we see Shanta here? Our friend at the Friends?
We have somebody else that's stepping in for Shanta. Oh, okay.
You want to go first? Okay,
Yep.
Go right ahead, and if they come, then we'll switch the order.
Thank you very much. I apologize the friends aren't here, but they had some juggling, and so thank you on behalf of the foundation. I'm Stephanie Stolsteimer, and I am delighted to report we're counting down to Library Lets Loose. Imagine that. September 17th, here at the Central Resource Library. I first want to extend our appreciation to you and to the community for allowing us to close the library for an entire day. That's a big deal. It is not lost on us that it's a very big deal to close the library for this special fundraiser and community builder. So thank you. You'll see an invitation in your place. I think Janae opened hers up already. Awesome. Thank you very much. I like that. She's writing stuff on it. Awesome. The invitation is in your place. And if you, I really want to point out too, on the back, there are 46 sponsors, that's a lot. We've been to a lot of events in person, not in person. To have 46 is kind of a lot. And so the library community is alive and well, wanting to support this event and the library. The donations total so far over $93,000, and so we'll keep amping it up. With the invitation, we'll continue to raise funds and to promote ticket sales. And also, Bethany pointed out the guide. There's a nice full-page ad in the guide for Library Lets Loose as well. So that's an additional reach. And we're doing social media. We're just doing everything we can to get people to come and enjoy this. And it is just thrilling to have this kind of community support as we go full steam ahead for this wonderful evening. I also want to report on a recent grant for BrainFuse. BrainFuse is an online tutoring platform. It was introduced to library patrons during COVID, which is pretty remarkable. The library had the BrainFuse teed up to go, and was also nimble enough to get it really up and running to meet the demands for online education options. So that's just was really well received in the granting community as well. So we received a generous grant of $10,000 for Brain Fuse from the Lewis and Elizabeth Nave Flarsheim Charitable Foundation. And lastly, I want to recognize special gifts in memory. From time to time, the Library Foundation is designated for gifts in memory for library lovers who have passed away. And these are bittersweet gifts, and it's worthy to note that recently the foundation was designated for such an honor. Many of you may have known Rob McKnight, the dear and late husband of Caroline McKnight. Caroline served on the library board and was a founding member of the foundation's board of directors. We have received over 40 gifts. They keep coming in. Today we got another one in memory of Rob McKnight. So we are grateful for these thoughtful and generous donors. That concludes my report. Are there any questions? I hope you come to Library Let's Loose. Thank you so much.
No, but Stephanie, you thank us for closing it, but we should be thanking you for all the work that you've done and the rest of the foundation. So
It's a
certainly.
it's a remarkable community endeavor. So thanks, David.
All right, so I think we just will, the report from the Friends is in, oh, okay, we've got somebody here, all right. All right. You are up.
Hello, everyone. I'm Shauna Eichenberg, and I'm the president-elect / VP of the Friends of the Johnson County Library, so thank you all for having me here. I believe all of you have received a written report on the Friends, so I will just add to that. We certainly have been very busy over the past couple of months. In addition to closing our bookstores in the library, so a couple of locations, we have been very busy in our budget planning process, making sure that we are developing our revenue projections and our operating budget line items. In addition to that, our internet sales manager, is working with our finance committee member, Karen Ristow, and they are doing a deep dive into postage costs to identify vendor calculations in need of revision and places where we might be able to reduce some of our shipping costs. At our July board meeting, the board voted unanimously to approve a personal leave of absence policy and added some clarifying language to our violence in the workplace policy. Our customer code of conduct is our next policy that we'll be looking at, so doing a lot of policy review. And then finally, we are wanting to say a huge thank you to the foundation board member Chuck Sipple and fellow Rotary Club members for wrapping up painting at the Friends headquarters, as we've done a lot of improvements over there. So we certainly hope that we can see some of you at our sales coming up on the weekends. Any questions? Nope. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much. All right, Janae, you're up.
Well, thank you, David. As a follow-up to the Friends report, I just have to tell a little story. Many of you know I'm up for re-election, this year, so I've been out knocking doors and talking to people. And recently, I was at the door of a woman, and we were talking about the county. And she said, does the county have any volunteer opportunities? Because I sure would like to volunteer. And I said, well, what do you like to do? And she said, well, I like to read. And I said, oh, have I got a volunteer opportunity for you? And so I was able to get her in contact with Amber Borick-Slade, of whom I don't see her here today. But my understanding is she is now a volunteer for Friends of the Library, so that was pretty exciting. So on a more somber note, a couple things coming up of note with the Board of County Commissioners. We will be having our public hearing for the 2023 budget on the evening of Monday, August 22nd at 6 p.m. homeowners should be receiving their estimated tax notice any time now. They were mailed out. Do remember, if you receive one of those, it is not a bill. It is not a bill. It is an estimate of what your taxes will be based on current appraised values of your home, as well as the proposed mill levies by the various taxing jurisdictions. And I would encourage everybody, please, when you get that notice, look at each line, because sometimes people think that because the county, we're required by the state to collect all of the property taxes, they think that means that their entire property tax payment goes to the county, which it does not. In fact, about 56% of your tax bill goes to schools, and about 2.6% goes to libraries, and a little bit to parks. But look at that, because you're going to hear a lot more in coming months about people wanting to reduce property taxes. But remember that, for example, the only mill levies that the Board of County Commissioners has any control over are the county and parks and library. We don't control the schools' mill levy, so or the cities or the state. So you might share that information if people bring that up. And then lastly, of course, I have to say what book I'm reading is. I'm currently reading a book called Halfway Home by Reuben Jonathan Miller, Race, Punishment, and the Afterlife of Mass Incarceration. And it's a fascinating book, just came out last year. And I just wanted to share some stats that were in here that I thought were especially notable. And now I probably won't be able to find them. Hang on a second. Here it is. Of the 2.3 million people who are incarcerated in the United States, think about that, 2.3 million. How many people live in Johnson County? About 600,000. So that's like 4 times Johnson County population. Of those 2.3 million, 40% are Black, 84% are poor, and half have no income at all. So this book is about how can we do better when people are leaving the justice system. And I'm proud of the many things we are doing in Johnson County, but there's still a lot more to be done. So recommend this book. And that's my report. If there are any questions, glad to take those. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. And I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Logan now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm going to report on several items here, and I'm going to conclude my report by talking about the revised Miriam documents that you're being asked to approve and why we're doing that, why we think it's best practice to do that. Let me first of all review, though, generally the board's authority with respect to building and land ownership and talk about the relevant state statutes. KSA 12-1223 controls, and in subpart A, it says that under the name of the Board of Directors of the Johnson County Library, it may hold real property, among other things. That's one of the powers, may hold real property. Under subsection B, it says that the acquisition or disposition of real property shall be subject to the approval of the BOCC. So, for example, when we have acquired a property, the first move is for the library board to approve that, and then for that to go out for ratification to the Board of County Commissioners. What's going on in Miriam is a good example of that process. This board will approve the acquisition first, and then it will go out to the BOCC after the City Council approves it for ratification. The same, we haven't had very many dispositions of library property, but the same rule applies, and that is that the library board enters into a contract to sell, and then that's subject to the ratification of the Board of County Commissioners. The library owns 13 properties that are titled in the name of the board of directors of the Johnson County Library. And then it leases a property in Edgerton, and that lease is under the name of the library board as well. So that is by way of background. And now let me talk about the Miriam documents that you're going to be asked to approve this evening. Let me begin by saying that the reason that we're going to ask you to approve revised documents is that as we prepared to go in front of the Miriam City Council, we thought we were under the gun that we're going to use a particular financing mechanism available through the Public Building Commission that might happen as soon as September. So there was a bit of a rush. But then as we studied it more with our county partners, we thought there were several other tools to use that would not put us under such a gun to move right away. And we thought that was better. What that also allowed us to do then is come back with a revised legal description now that the plat has been approved in Miriam, and revise the approval resolution and revise the documents that are going to be approved by you and by the city. So that's what you're doing this evening. Originally, I thought we would just do that through two motions, but then I thought, no, let's do this by resolution again, adoption of a resolution, move to approve a resolution, and you've had that now through the board portal. And it would be a resolution approving the second addendum to property conveyance agreement with the city of Miriam, Kansas, as amended, authorizing the execution and delivery of documents and the taking of other actions to consummate the transaction for conveyance of real property. And then separately approve the amended and restated agreement for shared parking and property maintenance. That can just be done by the simple motion. So that's by way of, we're just being ultra careful. We have not been asked to do a resolution this time as we were the last time around, but on reflection, we just thought, you know what, let's do the resolution. Then if we get asked for it, we've got it. And so that's why we're doing it. So with that, I will stand. Any questions on any of that?
Brad, after we vote on this resolution, or if we do, does that then need to be ratified by the Board of County Commissioners?
It will be after they will ratify this transaction after the city of Miriam acts on this. I believe it's on the 22nd. Is that correct? It goes in front of the council. So they'll act. They'll be the final actor on it.
Okay, thanks.
Else? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you. And with that, we turn it now over to, thank you, Tricia.
Thank you. Jeffrey, that will go very likely to the Board of County Commissioners in September. We'll start to get on their agenda, so probably the end of September.
I'd like to invite David Rotney to the podium for the finance report.
Thanks, Tricia. Good afternoon, Board. I'm going to go ahead and direct you to page 7 of your library board packet. There's our library total revenue report, reporting on where we finished up as of the end of June of 2022. So we're at mid-year, so half the year has lapsed at this point in time. We've collected a little over $39.6 million, which is about 90.4% of the budgeted revenue that we expect to receive. We're on target for where I'd expect to be at midpoint. You could see we're maybe just a touch behind from a percentage standpoint where we were of June of last year. But it's all within kind of, I think, a margin of what I would expect. And then from an expense standpoint, you can see that we have $24.2 million in expenditures to date of the $43.8 million in our budget. It's around 55%. While that would seem concerning, I will remind you that we've made intra-fund transfers and capital project transfers in total. So those are 100%. Those have been made. And what that does, it kind of gives, I think, an artificial expenditure look there, because if you factored those out, we're really at about 48% of what where we'd be with, and that includes those collection encumbrances and other encumbrances that we have. So we're in good shape. We're under 50% at mid-year. So so with that, I don't know if you have any questions in terms of where we're at with our budget at midpoint. Okay, and there was one other item on there I wanted to just briefly mention, and it's later in your library board packet, that administrative regulations, there's an ARM 107010, which talks about our library budget review process and approval process. And it includes the creation of a library board, or excuse me, a library budget review committee. And so later in this meeting, you'll be putting together that group. That group meets 3 times in the fall, usually October, November, and December. And then there's an early meeting, usually at the beginning of the following year, to where we present a final proposal that would go to that group before it come to the library board for their review. So just kind of wanted to let you know why that's there. What we're hoping to do is get that group put together and begin scheduling out some meetings in October, November, December. So with that, I'll stand for any questions you might have with that.
I don't have any on the budget. Remind me on the bonds.
Yeah.
That we'll be doing. I assume that's going to be coming up.
So you're talking about the bonds being issued for Antioch replacement?
Right. Yes.
Yes, correct. So we're cash funding roughly half of that building, with the remainder needing to be debt financed. We'd go through the Public Building Commission for issuance of those bonds. In talking with Leslie Friedel, who's the bond expert over at the Budget and Financial Planning Department for the county, my understanding is the county only has a couple smaller projects at this point in time, and like our amount that we would be issuing debt on would be the largest one of those. Most years they have a lot of wastewater projects that would be bonded, but there's been some special financing that we've gotten from the state that will not require us to have to go out for the county to have to go out for bonds for that. Where that leaves us is we believe there to be some flexibility that, and we're going to be looking, and we're meeting with Juan, our project coordinator, on that project, just to be looking at cash flows. It's possible we have enough cash in there to get us to where we wouldn't have to issue debt until next year. If that's not the case, we have some options. We could reapproach the county about still going out and doing bond issuance this fall. It'd be preferred usually that we try to package those together. I think we get better response from those that would be getting involved with bonds. So we'd like to usually have a bigger ask out there, because it just generates more interest and usually better interest rates as it relates to that. If for some reason we decide to not take that approach, the other option would be for us to take and do some bridge financing with our reserves. We're at about $14.3 million in our operating reserves right now. So we could lend ourselves essentially the money to get us to the point at which we would issue the debt and then pay ourselves back for that amount that we might be required, that amount that we borrowed from ourselves, if that makes sense. So there's options there. We feel comfortable being able to exercise those. While we've maybe not done that bridge financing, I know there's been a few county projects that have, so, and we would work with Leslie Friedel and bond counsel to make sure we got everything needed to satisfy whatever needs to happen to the point at which we
You've thought this through, is what you're saying.
Yeah, I've had some meetings.
No, that's
on
good.
it.
I know interest rates have gone up, but they've actually
Yeah.
ticked down the longer term lately, believe it or not. But
Yeah. And
it might even be better next year. Who knows?
Yeah, we hope. Sure.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Next will be Adam Wathen, and then he'll be joined by Alyssa and Ben Oglesby.
Hello, I'm Adam Wathen. I'm Associate Director for System-Wide Services at the library. And the monthly statistical report is here for you. So on the first slide, you'll see our physical circulation trend, which has paced in June with last year's numbers. That's pretty good in terms of June. We hope to see that go up in July as we had some in-person story times in July. And so we'll see if that sparked some physical circulation. But our digital circulation trend is going up, and you can see that after we announced Libby, and we see our digital circulation continuing to rise. And the word on the street is that it will continue in July. The numbers should be very good. Then for our door count, you'll see that we are pacing similarly to last year, but a percentage above. And so we're not at pre-COVID levels in terms of visitation, but we continue to trend upward every year. Any questions on those statistics before I turn it over to Alyssa Andre for our external communications and customer experience?
Hello, my name is Alyssa Andre. I'm the External Communications Manager for Johnson County Library, not the AV Tech. My colleague Ben Oglesby, the Marketing Specialist, is joining me today for this report about communication and marketing trends at the library. So, next slide, please. Our department has been very busy since we last presented in August. We've launched a marketing campaign, created and published 6 magazines and journals, 2 of which are in front of you today. Created an entirely new staff intranet, reopened Central Resource Library to the public, migrated our e-newsletters to a new platform, promoted summer reading and a return to in-person programming, announced a new county librarian, just to name a few. This in addition to our everyday work, sharing the amazing resources that Johnson County Library offers to our residents. So, next slide, please. So our team is small but mighty. Each team member has their own communications specialty. We were thrilled to add 2 new staff members to our team since last August. Courtney Samus joined us as a web content developer for our internal communications team, and Erin Barnes joined as our digital media specialist, focusing on video content. I also want to recognize the wonderful network of contributors from across the organization who keep an eye out for great content and promotional opportunities for us. We're adding a new project coordinator by the end of this year to hopefully let Scott Syme catch his breath a little bit, and are awaiting budget approval for a social media coordinator in 2023. Social media is a critical communication tool in a quickly evolving landscape, so we look forward to the innovation that this role could bring. Next slide, please. The Twitter growth has stalled a little bit, though remains steady. Our social media followers continue to grow year by year on our other platforms. In addition to the big 3, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, we've also seen significant growth in our podcast listenership and are active on platforms like LinkedIn, YouTube, and Google Business. Next slide, please. So followers are great and all, but audience engagement is a key factor. Engagement and impressions continue to remain a challenge as algorithms change in favor of paid advertising. So yet another reason we are hopeful for a dedicated social media position who can wrangle these opportunities. Next slide, please. So what are audiences liking these days? A lost bunny at Lenexa was shared nearly 1,000 times around the world, which is pretty exciting, but sadly it never found its owner. I know. And our hugely popular April Fool's Day innovations posts received comments like, "The library wins April Fool's. This is the best thing I've seen on the internet." So kudos to our team. Next slide, please. Our newsletters, which launched in 2020, continue to perform significantly above industry averages for open and click rates. In June, we migrated our newsletters to a new platform, Patron Point, which will allow us to add dynamic content that is tailored toward patrons' specific interests and locations. I will also take this time to make a plug for the book report, which you should have received this morning in your inbox. It is a newsletter specifically created for you, the board, and other county VIPs, highlighting interesting stories from around the system. Next slide. Catalog visits saw a 15% increase in 2021 from the year prior, numbers not seen since 2016, though web visits decreased by 38%. This tells us that users are going straight to the catalog for their needs rather than funneling through our website. And so to address this trend, we kicked off a project to refresh the website's content. Eventually, we'll get to the look and feel with our web and IT teams and some wonderful volunteers. Next slide, please. 6 volunteers combed our website looking for needed content updates and then participated in a focus group about the usability of the site. We are beginning additional user experience surveys this fall with patrons and staff and are refreshing key areas of the site now through the end of the year, like the e-library page. And now I will turn it over to Ben to talk about advertising in our recent campaigns.
Okay, thank you. So all costs remain relatively low, but costs did increase slightly due to several factors. Spending less on print and more on digital during the pandemic. The start of our Discover campaign toward the end of the year. Some of those impressions rolled over into 2022. Our Discover postcard mailing was a key channel for us, and continued focus on quality outlets for our key audiences. Thankfully, we've built great relationships with our vendors, and they understand our needs. They work with us to get the quality impressions we're after instead of the quantity of impressions. That sometimes means that the spending will be a little higher, but the return is reaching our intended audience more effectively. Next slide. So we launched our Discover campaign with a postcard mailed to every household in Johnson County. And there were also 3 commercial spots. Overall, the campaign has received 5.6 million impressions and has surpassed industry standard benchmarks. Next slide, please. In past years, we've reported on the total number of cardholders, which is what we've used to determine the ad spend stats above. A new metric we're tracking is active versus total patrons, as one of our goals of the Discover campaign is not only to bring in new cardholders, but also bring back cardholders who haven't used the library in a while. So a patron is considered an active patron if they have used the library in the past 3 years. Next slide, please. Another tactic to reach our goal was to mail out the summer guide to all the households in Johnson County in promotion of summer reading. Unfortunately, due to the supply chain constraints of our printer, they were unable to source enough paper, so the guide reached 90,000 households in April, and then a postcard was sent to the remaining 100,000 households in June. Next slide, please. Not a surprise to any of us marketing folks, but our efforts appear to be working. Library card applications show a significant increase from the last comparable period in 2019. Applications were up 25% in April after the guide was mailed, and up a whopping 31% in July, thanks to a combination of marketing, summer reading, the adoption of Libby, which has brought in cardholders from all across Kansas, and 6 of our branches serving as early voting locations. Next slide, please. You'll hear more from Tricia shortly about the partnership with elections, but we've heard several wonderful stories about voters waiting in line and realizing they ought to get a library card while they're here. Next slide, please. We have many exciting projects planned for the rest of this year and beyond, and look forward to sharing those results with you again next year. Thank you, and do you have any questions for us?
Thank you. I have a quick question. In terms, I don't know if you've ever looked at this, maybe this is something you could look at later on in the future. But in terms of from the marketing standpoint, do you know if patrons care about the name of the library? Like, do they know that Central Resource is here in Overland Park, or have they had any impact as to what the library is named versus how they recognize where it's located?
Yeah, great question. Most of our marketing is geared toward the system as a whole. It's not necessarily marketing a particular branch. And so we probably don't have the data to back up saying that that name has a really high recognition with a certain group of patrons. It's mostly the system-wide e-library or resources that are available at a lot of our different locations. So they're not library specific at this point. So I wouldn't have any data at this moment to back that up.
Thank you.
And we do have a member of the audience sporting the T-shirt from this summer, Lucas.
Yes, thank you,
If you'd like to
Lucas.
stand up and show the library board the Discovers part of the campaign. Lucas is a team player, clearly always supporting our communication efforts. So not a plant, but.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Very good report.
We'll have Scott join us. We're going to switch out some microphones, and then Scott will join us for his comprehensive library master plan update.
I'm not going to touch it, you guys. That lowered my stress level quite a bit by swapping out that mic. Okay, hello everybody. I'm Scott Syme, Project Coordinator for the library. Today I'll give you a few different updates. I'll start with the Antioch replacement. For Antioch replacement, I want to give you a quick design update. The design team's working on construction documents. This is the last phase of design, and the end product is biddable drawings. The construction manager oversees that process. Those bids will turn into the project's guaranteed maximum price for construction, which will come to the library board hopefully later this year, and then on to the Board of County Commissioners. This is the same process we've used for Monticello and Lenexa and Central, so good solid process. As far as approvals and City Planning Commission, we went before the Marion Planning Commission last week, and we've got some great news. We have new business, as Fred mentioned earlier, to talk about revisions to those agreements. The Marion Planning Commission approved our final development plan, and our next stop for approvals is the Marion City Council on the 22nd. And Kelly and David, as board liaisons, it'd be great to have you there to show the board's support for the project if it works for your calendar. Public art update next. Back in March, Brad Reinhardt, the county's outgoing facilities director, came to give an overview of our public art process to the library board. So in 2006, the BOCC passed a resolution to provide public art for capital projects and created the Public Art Commission. For each capital project, the PAC, the Public Art Commission, appoints an artist selection panel. In March, the panel was reviewing submissions for public art, and I've got great news for you tonight. We have approval for 2 artists, 2 commissions, a main and a secondary. This is similar to how we did it for Monticello. The main artist, Sage Vaughn's past work has included explorations of plants and flowers. The artist selection panel felt this was a strong connection to our green roof. Our team will be working on the scope, scale, and location. That one's anticipated to be exterior. Secondary artist is Emily Alvarez, a muralist, and that one will be interior. Quick update on naming the building. Naming committee, Bethany, JR, and Jeffrey, and Jen and I met earlier, maybe last week. We discussed the names generated and also the short list. We landed on a compromise, and we need to do a little bit of groundwork, and then we'll bring a recommendation back to the library board. Okay, next steps are approvals, property conveyance, and continuing on with design. Next slide. Here's a look at our timeline. No changes since last time. Any questions on the Antioch replacement?
Thank you, Scott. I just had a question about naming. Is this the first time we've looked at naming a library? Because I was thinking all of our other libraries are named according to their location. Can you talk a little bit about why
Sure, happy to.
why there's a different process for the Antioch Library?
Yeah, so the library board's decision, it's the library board's decision to name the building. It is true that most of our buildings are geographically named, I would say. With Lenexa, we did a similar process where we kind of looked out in the community to find names that were historically significant for that area. So we did the same process with, I'm getting my buildings mixed up, Antioch. And so that's where that kind of list of names came from. And yeah, so a similar process we did for Lenexa. Does that answer your question? Okay. Other questions on Antioch replacement before I move on to DeSoto, Spring Hill, and Edgerton? Okay. Next slide, please. Okay, and then one more. So I wanted to start with a little bit of context. We are in the middle of implementing our 20-year Comprehensive Library Master Plan, originally anticipated to occur over 20 years with full funding. We were happy to receive partial funding in 2015. With that, we were able to schedule out the first few building projects. And DeSoto, Spring Hill, and Edgerton were not on that initial list. As we know, all of our branches are important to the community. A few years back, our administrative team and the library board at the time felt it was important to make some improvements at those 3 locations. DeSoto and Spring Hill are right about 40 years old. They haven't had a significant renovation in that time. Edgerton's about 20, well, we've been in the building for about 20 years. And that is, as Fred mentioned, our only leased building. So this study was born, and tonight we're excited to have Clark and Anderson present conceptual designs for renovating these locations. In a minute, I'll introduce Matt and Jean from the design team. They'll walk through each of the options. They'll review budget and duration for each. At this point, we're only presenting anticipated durations and not quite overlaying a calendar yet. Presenting this info to the library board is informational tonight, so we don't need an action from you at this time. I think with that, I'll go ahead and introduce Matt Glowitz and Jean Stoverink to talk about the conceptual designs.
Thank you, Scott. Again, my name is Matt Glowitz. I'm an architect with Clark and Anderson and primarily library designer for the firm. Jean, I'll let you introduce yourself.
And I'm Jean Stoverink. I'm an architect and project manager with Clark and Anderson.
All right, next slide, please. As Scott mentioned, today we want to talk a bit about the process of the study for DeSoto, Spring Hill, and Edgerton. And kind of to recap, all of this began with staff and public engagement to really gather a lot of information about the wants and needs and how really best to improve these 3 branch locations. And so a lot of that information was gathered through online and paper surveys. We did have a lot of responses, over 350 responses. And we also had a live virtual listening session in March of this year, which also garnered some great responses. All of those responses went into the planning efforts to really prioritize the items that would be implemented through this study. And a couple of high-level trends did develop. As we can see here, the desire for a wider range of hours and access across these branches, maintaining access to popular collections, holds as well as browsing, a desire for collaborative and quiet study areas, so really improving the amount of public space for patrons to utilize these branches, and making sure that we are prioritizing our children's area. Those kid spaces are incredibly important, making sure that we have the appropriate amount of space and activities within those. And then a lot of what we also heard was a great appreciation for the staff at these locations. And so that's kudos to everyone within the library system to really making sure that those communities are well served. Next slide, please. So kind of going through each of these branches, again, a couple of findings and priorities that had developed throughout this process, beginning with DeSoto. That first priority really was trying to implement study and collaborative patron spaces. And so again, today that branch doesn't really have those opportunities, and so looking for opportunities to bring those into the space. Secondly, upgrading security and as well as the service desk, making sure that we can prioritize that service model, reaching out into the community, but also planning security not only for today, but also to implement future service models as the libraries continue to evolve. increasing and maintaining, I should say, in Desoto, the public access to PCs. And then making sure that we're really taking care of that 6x6 and story time space so that we can have space within the library that really serves that need. Maintaining but potentially right-sizing the collection at this branch, and then looking at an opportunity for meeting and or study space that's more or less dedicated or enclosed was a top priority here. Making sure that we're still taking care of the staff space within this branch, looking at opportunities outside of the building to expand library services into the community, making sure that within the staff space we have efficient circulation space and then also a convenient entrance. So that it kind of summarizes the findings for Desoto that outlined kind of the direction we would take for the study. Next slide. At Spring Hill, a lot of the same. Again, that top priority was those study spaces and collaborative patron spaces, comfortable seating, opportunities for the community to come together. Again, security and service at the top here, public PCs. And really, you're seeing a lot of the same coming through in priority. We did explore at Spring Hill the feasibility of a future drive-through, and so that again has been considered, has been thought about, and at this time, I believe it's determined that that would not be pursued. But again, it could be something that could be implemented into the future. And go ahead to the third slide here, please. At Edgerton, again, a lot of the same security. Really kind of moved to the top priority here. And that, again, is really trying to look forward into the future for how this branch can maybe best serve the community in different aspects. And so the beginning of that really comes down to providing the right level of security and access control for the building. Here again, we heard a lot about children's space and programs. 6x6 and story time was a high priority for this community. The collection also a high priority here. And then study spaces and meeting room spaces. And again, as you go down the list, a lot of the same items, but in different priorities. And so kind of the top 5 really here we'll see implemented more fully into that study. Next slide, please. So right now we'd like to go through each of these branches in a little more detail. This is the existing condition plan at Desoto. For those maybe less familiar with the plan, the entrance is on the top. And as you come in, if you would turn right or to the left side of the screen, we have an area for youth with computers. And then on the opposite side, we have more of an open seating and public computer area. Centralized collection, but very high shelves today. So visibility across the library is diminished because of that collection. We have a large kind of staff area, but it's fairly open, has a little bit of openness for patrons, and sometimes there's confusion to come into that space. And then on the bottom side, we have our existing restrooms, and we have the children's area as well. So at the back of the building, but fairly enclosed, not a lot of space there for some of the activities. Next slide. So we wanted to take a look at, if we could take out some key maybe construction components of the building and open up the plan, what flexibility does that offer us? Maintaining the existing restrooms, maintaining the mechanical room at the bottom there, but really dealing with an open floor plate. Next slide. And so this is a conceptual plan of how, based off of the feedback from the community and from library staff, how maybe best we could reorganize this branch to, again, best serve the community today and into the future. So one of those main components, the light blue square at the top, right off the entrance would be a new 10-person meeting room. And so maybe looking at opportunities to enclose that space to provide that additional amenity. And then areas within that lighter purple, if you will, new popular and adult seating with the orange areas being collaborative patron seating. And really distributing that throughout. New opportunities for comfortable seating, different opportunities for patrons to come together and gather, whether that be in quiet reading, whether that be socializing, or just gathering, again, within the library. Pushing public computers, again, towards the front in that green square. And then as we're coming down within the library itself, seeing a new area for youth computers, internalizing that a little bit, so we're separating that activity and joyous noise from some of the patron spaces at the front. And then, as you would notice at the bottom of the plan, enlarging that children's area, removing an existing study room so that we can really expand that 6x6 opportunity there, as well as looking at opportunities for increasing natural light. So potentially some new windows to the south of the building, really extending view and natural light into that space. On the staff side, reworking the workroom, integrating components of security, as well as visibility, so that, again, staff can accurately and efficiently monitor the library, but also have efficient patron interaction. And then you can see in the gray square the inclusion of that dedicated security and data room, so that, again, as we're moving security into the future here, we have dedicated space for that. And next slide, please. At Desoto, we also looked at the exterior. This is in the downtown environment, and so we found a great opportunity with the available space on the north side of the library to maybe refresh that and create exterior patron space. So right now it exists as maybe bike storage. I think there's a table out there looking at opportunities to expand program opportunities outside of the library and really refreshing the face of the library for the community. Next slide.
So for this work, we anticipate approximately 11 months from the beginning of design and documentation through the end of construction and furniture implementation. So that would allow about 4 months for design and documentation, 2 months for bidding, permitting, procurement, and then 6 months for construction. Next slide, please. We're estimating around 1.3 for total project cost on this branch. These costs have been escalated to the later half of 2023. We're currently seeing about 1% construction escalation per month right now, so that's looking a year out. So that is a contributing factor. And then this total project cost would include, be made up of reserve dollars, CRP dollars, and furniture and shelving dollars. And then just to note that this cost does also include pathways and conduit for baseline security that would be part of the project, but anything that would be added to maybe extend hours, if that were to happen at the library, that would be a separate bucket or a separate cost. And so without knowing the exact calendar dates that these would happen, we chose a late 2023 date for all of these. And then, of course, if construction were to happen later out than that, then you would add construction escalation for that.
Thank you. Moving on to the Spring Hill branch, this is the existing plan. This is smaller than Desoto today. But has some of the same spaces. So the entrance is on the lower left-hand side of the plan, and as you come into the space, again, tall collection as you come directly to the right in the plan, centralized staff today, as well as an enclosed staff room. Public computers are directly north of that, as well as the public restrooms, and then the children's area here is actually on the upper right corner of the plan with a small storage room off of that as well. So similar to Desoto, if you go to the next slide, we wanted to look at not only how could we potentially open up this plan to provide a bit more flexibility in how the space can be utilized, but here we also wanted to really maximize the opportunity for how this site can be utilized for the library efficiently, especially based off of the amount of feedback we heard from this community. And so we looked at the opportunity for a 1,000 square foot addition at this branch location to help meet some of the needs that we heard. Next slide. And those are realized here in this conceptual plan. And so as you are entering, again, from the same point on the plan, immediately within the library, you have your popular library area with self-check, copy, and print. Immediately beyond that, expanding the public access for computers from 4 to 6. Public computers for adults and general use. We have additional children's computers further into the space. But you'll also notice here looking at the addition of 2 4-person study rooms. And so that was a big request from the community, dedicated space that can be reserved, can be utilized in a quiet manner, but also a collaborative manner. Directly outside of that in the orange, more dedicated space for collaborative patron seating. And then just north of that, reorganizing the collection, again, maybe looking at some shorter shelving heights to maximize visibility, but also orienting those for clear views through the space. Immediately inside the entrance is the staff mobile service point with workroom and break space behind that. And then as you're moving into the addition, that really allows us to expand those kids 6x6 as well as teen offerings for within the space, not only from a collection standpoint, but from an activity standpoint. And that is directly adjacent to a new 12 to 16 person multi-purpose room, seeing that as being an extension of that kids area at times, but also being able to be closed off and utilized independently. Dedicated program and general storage off of that room, and then a new staff entrance that would be accessible, unlike the entrance today, and also help improve courier operations to this branch location. Next slide. Here, as well as we saw at Desoto, wanting to look beyond the walls of the library and how can we best utilize the overall site. We do have a lot of site here compared to the other two locations, and we noticed that really the parking lot seemed oversized for this branch. And so based off of what we heard, again, from the community and from staff input, providing an outdoor resource, maybe an extension of library services into that community would be beneficial. And so seeing maybe to the north of this addition, a 24-hour outdoor program reading and activity space. Access to Wi-Fi would be possible at this location, comfortable seating, and maybe even just thinking about this as a public lawn that can be utilized by the community, but with great proximity to the library so that, again, it extends these services. Reworking the parking lot itself to maintain the appropriate amount of stalls, and also incorporating better bike storage as well as outdoor seating next to the entrance. Next slide.
So this is the most extensive of construction of the three branches, and so this we would be looking at a 14-month timeline, 5 months for design and documentation, and around 8 months for construction and furniture implementation. And I realized I forgot to mention on Desoto branch, but both Desoto and Spring Hill are more moderate to heavy renovation. They both would affect the core and shell. On Desoto and Spring Hill, both we would be doing a complete roof replacement and roof drainage replacement. And on Desoto, that also includes all new windows and also enlarging one of the windows in the kids area. So they are more than just interior renovations on these two buildings. You'll see Edgerton's a little bit different case. And so we're looking at around estimating $2023, around 2.6 for Spring Hill. And Spring Hill and Desoto also both include exterior site work, and the timelines for those both would include time for geotechnical investigation, soils report, and all of that to assess the outdoor spaces and create those designs as well. And those would be reflected in these costs.
Thirdly, the Edgerton branch, again, this is the existing condition, and the entrance here is on the top of the plan off of the main street through town. And as you come into the space, it's really divided between two kind of existing historic buildings that have been combined really into this library use. So you have more of the staff point and public computers, adult collection on the right side of the plan, and then you have your youth, kids and teen collections, juvenile collections on the left side. The bottom right is an outdoor patio that is in disrepair. Needs some upgrades to make that usable once more. And then again on the left side you have your public restrooms and a small meeting room with an adjacent kind of access point / janitor's closet / break room / a lot of things. And so next slide. Here again looking at really touching this branch the least as far as the interior renovations. The interior space is quite open today and also really exudes that historic feeling of the original building. But we found opportunity, again, based off of what we heard from the community, really a need for additional study or meeting space in that lower left-hand portion of the plan where the existing meeting room as well as that multi-purpose hallway, if you will, was located. And so seeing that as being opened up a little more here, if you go to the next slide, and then really thinking here about how best to utilize this branch for a community that is predominantly utilizing it for children's services, somewhat collection, but really wants to see more space here for seating, meeting, collaboration, and socialization. And so the main portion, as you come into the library, looking at that as really opening that up to more open seating and patron space, as well as public computers and a book display. And then concentrating on the west half, maintaining that as kids 6x6, youth computers, the popular library, and maybe utilizing that also as your staff mobile service point. Thinking about the initial space again, possibly in the future, maybe having a retail component. I think that is something that could definitely be borne out through additional study. But thinking about what amenities could be utilized here that really would bring patrons in. That could be coffee, that could be something else. Again, that has not been determined, but thinking about that from a long-term opportunity standpoint. But again, on the left side of the plan, on the lower portion, expanding that meeting and multi-purpose space to really provide a usable space for the community. Still maintaining that exit point to the south, but getting rid of the hallway and really making a space that can be better utilized for the community. Also, again, updating that existing exterior patio, possibly providing opportunities for shading and outdoor seating, and creating, again, a community resource within that space.
And for the smaller scope on this project, we estimate around a 9-month from beginning of design and documentation through construction. And this total project costs for this would be under $500,000. This does include some exterior improvement costs, which we expect would be shared with the city of Edgerton. And so we've assumed what a library's share might be in those exterior improvement costs, and that's included in this. And so those exterior improvements would be full roof replacement and drainage upgrades, and then tuck pointing around the building, making the patio outback ADA accessible. I believe those are the major components of the exterior work.
How big is the patio? What sides are we looking at?
Can you
guesstimate?
Take me back a couple
Can you go back
slides to the floor plan.
20 by 20?
20 by 20.
Maybe a little bit smaller
And how
than that.
enclosed is it? Is it literally just kind of a brick pad, concrete? I literally have no memory of
certainly.
this place.
So you have the two stair access points, one from the east, one from the south. There's a parking lot to the south. It is really just flat brickwork, or less flat today, but intends to be flat. And it's really just open today. There is I believe, an existing shade on the north exterior wall. Not sure what condition that really is in to extend and actually provide shade today. But there is just the door with a side light window leading back into that space.
It just seems like there's an opportunity there to do a gazebo, a 3-season room, something that gives more multi-purpose than just another patio. If that's something that the city would be amenable to, then that might also give patrons more meeting space, more function space, and especially if something like that is useful in Edgerton, even something that people could use for events or whatever. But I mean, if we're doing this, then that space right now feels possibly a little underutilized, that with, I don't know, maybe a little bit more pixie dust, we could do something that brings even more functionality and usefulness to the space and to the community as we're looking at that. I mean, outdoor seating is nice for, 12 minutes of the Kansas year. We're not in any of those minutes right now, but maybe in October. But it just feels like out of everything, that may still be a little underutilized, and with a little bit more creativity, maybe we could get more out of that space as well.
Certainly. Great comments there.
I just had a question in terms of, these are all one-story buildings. Is there structurally any possibility another story could be added at some point?
With the current construction of these, no. We would need to provide secondary structural support to have any sort of vertical additions to these today.
Thank you.
I've got a couple. The first one's probably for you, Scott, really quick. What is the size of Antioch's that's the new library going to be? Just for context.
It's about 15,000 square feet.
Okay. These are 4? 3, 4?
In that range,
okay.
Yes.
I don't know who this is for, but has the city of Edgerton kind of addressed all their issues? I don't know if that's for you, Tricia, or...
Potato.
That's all right.
I'm actually going to let Scott answer this because I don't know all the details.
Okay.
So we've been talking with the city of Edgerton for a little while now, and it does sound like they've committed to doing some of the repairs on the building. This is the only city-owned, or the only non-library board-owned property that we have.
Okay. And if we do this, I mean, can we get some sort of commitment from the city that they're not going to completely ignore some of the things so that, in 10 years, we're not coming back and saying, well, they haven't done anything lately.
I think that would be great.
Okay. Thank you.
High-level comment here that I was on the budget committee where this conversation started, 4 or 5 years ago, and we got caught kind of in COVID, and all of this kind of got put on hold as we were managing a pandemic. And so this is exactly what we were looking for, that when this conversation started, so shout out to Scott, Clark Anderson, all of our partners, admin team, this is exactly what we were talking about. This is exactly what we asked for, so rock on. I think that there's a lot here that these communities are going to be really, really excited for, that we have a diversity within Johnson County, that not everybody lives in the big giant houses and is going to have a 60,000 square foot flagship, whatever, or the new modern 21st century library. And we can honor all of the choices that people within our community make in terms of whether or not they want to live a little more rurally, they want to live in the big suburbs, whichever, that we can still provide a service and a 21st century library system, even in 4,000 square feet. If we think smart and are creative and are good stewards of our money, we can achieve that. So to everybody involved in this, thank you. This is exactly what I asked for. Y'all are awesome.
And so this information that we're giving you today is a precursor to the October board retreat on Wednesday, the 19th of October. Wanted to give this to you early so you can start to mull over how these projects factor into the comprehensive library master plan, the scheduling, money, all of those type of things. So,
in terms of project management and time, what kind of a burden are we looking at in terms of staff management and how we would thread the needle with some of our bigger projects and some of the smaller stuff?
That's a really good question. So it's not just one person that does that work. We have a huge commitment from many different of our branch team and system-wide departments, so materials handling, IT, branch services, CXCOM, our communication team, all those folks, plus our consultants and branch staff too. Yeah, it's that's something I'm trying to work out right now, is what's the right balance of building projects at once.
And in terms of project management, and we do a lot of stuff that in terms of, we've got our big projects, these would be kind of our medium projects, and then just the general care of 15-ish and a half buildings as this comes on line with further stuff. Are we looking at possibly the need of adding kind of management staff in terms of project management, facilities, all of this kind of stuff? Are we still kind of in our target area for what we need person power wise?
I think we're getting there. We're actually adding another project coordinator. And so there's a ramp up time, of course, of that person. But we definitely can see that opens up some possibilities. We still probably, on the IT collection, those fronts, we have those subject matter experts who have gained experience with Monticello, with Central, with Lenexa. So they're getting better at it, and we're getting better as a library system and more efficient in that as the fourth building that we'll do and as we move on down the road. So I think there's some efficiencies there, but we probably still would have to look at adding some staff if the board chose to really accelerate, have multiple projects going at one time. That's its own staff ramp up.
Okay, and in terms of community engagement, commentary, was any one particular community feeling more pressed about their library not serving them as well as it could in terms of helping us prioritize needs, wants, wishes, dreams?
Well, before Scott answers, I'll say that we have met with the city of DeSoto. I think we talked about in July at the library board meeting, the news about Panasonic. So we wanted to touch base with them to see, what's coming down the pipe for them. What do they see? What fast track or not are they on, and where they see the development? And then we also have meetings with Spring Hill and Edgerton that'll be coming as well. So DeSoto really, the city of DeSoto really spoke in, they're just at the beginning of planning out that growth and trying to imagine really what that means. Okay. Jen is our eyes on the ground in DeSoto. But they were very open to collaboration now, and they certainly saw the path of redoing the current building, keeping it downtown, which is something that they're very interested in doing, is keeping their downtown very vibrant. And then as the growth, Panasonic moves in and starts to realize maybe that's 10 years plus, that it's a separate building, more downtown, whatever that comes to be. So.
Yeah, the only thing I might add is just about the turnout or number of responses we had from each community. So Spring Hill was the, I think we had the most turnout from them, and then DeSoto, and then Edgerton.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
One quick point. So I think we originally put aside, $1 million for this, and we're at $5 million. So we're able, did we put aside, that was kind of a
placeholder
earmarker for at some point down the road. Is that correct? Okay.
And certainly, the board can direct us to head toward the more paint, light refresh approach, which is definitely closer to that $1 million, give and take inflation, or to the side that we're presenting a little bit more responsive to the specific community request. So there's a spectrum in there that we can fit to the money that we want to spend.
I'm a big believer. If we're going to do it, we might as well do it right, as long as it's responsible. You mentioned something about the drive-through. Is that something that if you remodeled this now, let's say you don't do the drive-through right now, let's say in 5 years, would you design this so that in, let's say 5 years, it can just, I say easily,
Yes.
Okay, good. You're keeping that in mind.
Definitely.
Then, okay, certainly. Because I think that's the mistake that was kind of made here. And I know there was money issues. There was so much other, this before I was on the board, that, we kind of did the redo and then we did another redo rather than, keeping that in mind so that any redo is relatively minor at that point in time. Yeah.
At Spring Hill, we've been watching the curbside numbers, and that also helped inform how far up on the priority list did a drive-through go. And the curbside numbers are less than at other branches. And so we definitely had conversations about how do we build or design the building so we could add a drive-through at a later date easily in the scheme of things.
No, I like, and flexibility, I think, is key probably going forward.
Okay. Thanks again.
Thank you very much.
I think Scott just has a few more maybe 2 more slides?
Just a couple more slides. We do have a few members of the project team for this study in the room that I might quickly recognize. We've got Sean Hendricks over there, John Keogh, Jen Munken, Alyssa Andre. See, okay. So thank you guys. Okay, capital improvement timelines. Next slide, please. This is the kind of big CIP or capital improvement projects timeline. No change on this one since the last time. Next slide. This is our smaller capital replacement plan timeline, and there are a few changes that I'll just kind of quickly go through. Cedar Road work's occurring now over at Cedar Row. We're on track to open back up on August 20th. Work over there includes paving, correcting some ADA deficiencies, and replacing the mezzanine ceiling and the building automation system. Gardner is the next one up. We have a closure request on your agenda tonight. We anticipate work starting in October and lasting through December over there. Oak Park, we have a work authorization on the agenda tonight, and we anticipate that this work will, actually we're still working with our contractor on making sure that we can schedule that. And then Shawnee's the last one. That one will begin in 2023. Any questions on the CRP projects?
Good evening. My name is Laura Blair, and I am the Learning and Development Training Manager. And just for some context, a question was raised about professional development and how we as Johnson County Library help share our knowledge and best practices with other libraries. And so this quick presentation is about what we are doing in that vein. So next slide, please. So professional development, one of the things that the Learning and Development Department is doing is looking at our practices and asking, what is the purpose of what we're doing and what is our strategy around it? So we have redefined our professional development strategy when it comes to conferences. In order to increase individual professional development, organizational growth and development, and contributions to the profession, JCL supports attendance to conferences and external events by JCL staff on an annual basis. We send people for professional development reasons, organizational development reasons, so how can we support JCL in more ways, contributions to the profession, so leading committees, presenting, and those types of things. All of these help us provide a better patron experience. Types of events that are included in this are, in-person and virtual conferences, things that are sponsored by the American Library Association and things of that nature. Local or virtual events, these are nice because they can drive down further into the organization to frontline staff. And then external classes and certifications. Next slide, please. So some quick statistics for you for 2022. We have 77 JCL employees scheduled to attend a conference. That does not include external events, so webinars and things of that nature. This is just for large conferences. We had 35 distinct conferences, including things like the American Library Association, DrupalCon, the Association of Talent Development, and Kasuji, which is Customers of Cersei Dynex Users Group Incorporated. So that's one of our systems that we use here in the library. So this is a great opportunity for our librarians to go out and be part of the greater community. Next slide, please. So at the American Library Association in 2020, which was held this June, we had a group of librarians present Breakthrough, an organizational legacy structure that is no longer working. We have two of our presenters here tonight, Deb and Lisa. Would you guys stand up? There was a team of four, Michelle Olson, Deb Tillotson, Lisa Jordan, and Kristen Holman Ross. You can sit down now if you want. Went and presented. The topic was the circulation coordination team, and that's a coordinated management team that has been operating at JCL since 2018, and it has really made a difference in the efficiency and effectiveness of the circulation team. Their presentation was a huge success. I've heard all kinds of fun stories that it was standing room only, and as they walked through the conference for the rest of the time, it was, hey, you're those Johnson County girls. So they were very well recognized. They got a lot of engagement. One of the other pieces of engagement that I found really interesting, Ben Sons, who is not the AD over branch staff, was there and was supporting them. And one of the questions that they got was, well, how does your admin support this? And they're like, well, why don't you ask him? We have a member of our admin team here. And it came out that, of course, they were like, oh, of course you're going to support them. They report to you. And he's like, actually, none of these people report to me, but we all support the work that they're doing. And they achieved their goals. And they were very, very grateful for the support of admin and for the library board to allow them to do this. So what do we have coming up? Next slide. We have 14 people who are going to be presenting at the Kansas Library Association. And we have reading glasses are not working for me tonight. We have 5 presentations, including a Community Matters book club discussion talking about the community focused book clubs that we have. And then we have a 15th person who is going to the Amigos Library Services Materials on the Move and to talk about managing a floating collection. So we are out there sharing the best and brightest of what Johnson County libraries have to offer. Any questions?
No, but thank you for doing that.
You're welcome.
That's what I'm talking about.
Not a question, but just reiterating that I was able to attend their session, and it was very, very well received. People stayed late to ask a lot of questions, and I'm sure they got a lot of comments through the rest of the conference, too. So great job.
Woohoo.
Thank you, Laura. Next, we'll hear from Jen.
Hello. Jennifer Munken, Interim Deputy County Librarian. I just wanted to give you a little bit of background on when we last did our studies, our hours studies, which was a really long time ago. So for some context, I think context is the word of the day, Tricia. Everybody's used that word, and Ben's not here. For some context, back in probably 2013, almost 10 years ago, it was suggested to us by a staff member that we consider opening in an hour earlier. So we began to think about that idea, and we formed a hypothesis that if we shifted hours from being open from 10 to 9 back to 9 to 8, that we would better serve our patrons. So we set out to prove that hypothesis by collecting data and anecdotes from our patrons. We gathered data for 8 months. Since the community libraries didn't have as many hours, and they already closed at 8 o'clock on the evening that they were open, this study did not really affect the community library. So I know that was your question earlier as we consider renovating these libraries. So they weren't really included in this study. So we originally presented our findings to the library board in October of 2014. And I think we had 2 or 3 presentations maybe. And then finally in December of 2014, the library board approved our request to move to 9 to 8. And those hours took effect starting in April of 2015. That gave us time to create communication around the change for our patrons. So that was why there was a lag in that. Next slide, please. So some of the things we considered when we did this, some data points, as we looked at what the other libraries were doing in the metro area. When did they close? What time did Olathe close? What time did Kansas City Public close? And are we in line with that? We looked at the number of transactions between the hours of 8 and 9 p.m. to see how many people would be affected, how many people use the library in that time frame. The number of transactions in the morning from 9 to 10 at Central. Central was already opened at 9 in the morning. And so how many people came to this building because no other building was open, and how many transactions did we have? The number of computer transactions in the evening, our door counts in the evening. So we actually had people manually counting how many people were in the building from 8 to 9 every evening. We looked at convenience. If we shifted our hours to earlier, then we could maybe perhaps offer programming earlier in the morning. So story time could start at 9:30 instead of 10:30, and that might not hit nap time so much, and that would probably be a better thing for some of our parents. How many people would pick up holds earlier if we shifted? So those are some not so data-driven things that we talked about. And then the staffing and facilities costs, we also tried to look at that as well. Next slide, please. So in preparing for this presentation and digging through old data and old board reports, I was able to find an old slide that provided some of that data. This particular slide shows what those counts were for how many transactions we had between 8 and 9 p.m. For the most part, all of our branches had less than 10 interactions in that time slot. Blue Valley and Central were the anomalies just because they were the bigger buildings serving more patrons. Next slide, please. So here's some of the summaries from the data that we gathered. I showed you the transactions. Our data showed a steady decline in usage of the buildings after noon. So from noon to 9 p.m., we had a steady decline in users, and the lowest time being that 8 to 9 p.m. slot. We had very few computer users after 8 o'clock. We looked at staffing costs. I estimated just what for that hour, 8 to 9 p.m., we would need approximately 33 staff to cover the building. That totaled about $158,000. A better calculation probably would be to look at how many staff we would have to add to keep those, like if we opened at 9 and closed at 9, how much would it cost us to be open 12 hours instead of 11 hours? I didn't do that math. Math is not my forte. Also, we just determined that because there's fewer people in the building, it was not as efficient for us from a staffing perspective to staff that last hour with people when we could have people shifted and during more busy times. So it just didn't make sense to us to have that 8 to 9 o'clock hour. That's finally what you all voted on as well. So again, this data is almost 10 years old. And things have changed significantly for us. We've added many online resources, many digital resources, digital programming that we didn't have before. So lots of things have changed in the time since we've last studied this. We are not super confident in the data that we have now because things have changed so much, other than to say probably our evening hours are still our lowest usage time in the library. And as any changes we would make moving forward, we would do another study. We would take time to survey patrons in some way. Now that we have Alyssa, surveying becomes much easier. We would survey our patrons. We would ask them what their preferences would be. We would ask them what they would like to see. And especially in the community libraries, we'd really look at shifting our hours so that we're in the building when our patrons want to be in the building, and make those decisions accordingly. And then as we look at extending access, try to get our staff in the building at the most popular times. And I think that's all I have. The last slide is questions. So is there anything I can answer for you?
I have a question, and you may not have this information at your fingertips, but I know Lenexa has the ability to go in and get holds after hours. How many people are using that? I'm just curious.
We do have a number. I don't have it off the top of my head. We did shift those times. We started, I think,
we were matching them when we originally opened with the Recreation Center to get that campus-wide approach. And I think we scaled back those hours.
Yes, we also scaled back the hours that our drive-through was open. So our drive-through had been opening at 7, but they had very few transactions at that time. So we shifted that back to 9 a.m. And then they still have access to the Holes lobby starting, I believe, at 5 a.m. and they have access to it until 10 p.m. And so those after hours aren't huge, but people are using it in those after hours, off hours times. And I'll get those exact numbers for you.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Anything else? Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jen. And then the last update is something that Ben mentioned earlier, just an election update with our involvement and support. So you probably all saw in the news that we had very high numbers of advanced voters. So as of the 31st of July, there were nearly 100,000 advanced voters in the county. Johnson County Library supported 3 advanced voting locations, so our Oak Park, Monticello, and Lackman building. There's 16 total advanced voting sites in the county. We had 3 of them. And then we have ballot drop boxes at 6 of our locations. There are 8 in the county, so we have the majority of those. And then for polling place for voting day of, we have 7 locations. The Blue Valley, Cedar Row, here at Central, Corinth, Monticello, Oak Park, and Shawnee. And then, of course, add in there the advanced voting. So roughly half of our locations are engaged on that day of, and almost all of our locations are engaged in some way, shape, or form, whether it's ballot box, advanced voting, or day of. We always love to throw in a wonderful story, and we see many voters, new and experienced. And this year, one of our longtime patrons visited Oak Park. She was a patron that used to come with her grandmother quite a bit to the Oak Park Library, not only for checking out the library, but for voting as well. And she had not been back in several years, probably likely to the pandemic. And she came on to vote and had very fond memories of being there with her grandmother. And this was her first time to vote. And she was very, very excited. And she said to the staff that she felt like she was going to cry, thinking of all the happy times there. She was there with her grandmother, and she was very excited to try to hit the 150 item max checkout. So that is one story at one branch, and I'm sure there are 100 more. We see lots of first-time voters as well as young people coming with their parents to vote. And being involved in that process. So we're happy to work with elections. We will be doing some work with them just post-primary to see if there are any tweaks we can make at our locations, promotions, all those type of things to gear up for the general election. So, and that concludes my report.
Thank you very much. All right, we're moving on, looks like, to the consent agenda.
I move the Library Board of Directors approve the consent agenda.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. And let's see. Old business, it looks like.
Yes. So on page 90, this is to consider approving the 2 revised agreements. This is the information that Fred spoke about earlier. So you can see on page 90 is the briefing sheet. You've seen these agreements before, generally how they are. There's a revision. If you look on page 91, about in the middle of it, the section, it talks about the revised agreements. So there's a full legal description of the property, the language in the earlier version that related to the roof hanger or overhang has been deleted, and the exhibits connected with both agreements have been updated.
All right, any questions? Would someone like to make a motion?
I move to adopt a resolution approving the second addendum to property conveyance agreement with the City of Merriam, Kansas, as amended, authorizing the execution and delivery of documents and the taking of other actions to consummate the transaction for conveyance of real property.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, passes. All right, on to new business. So
there's actually, this is,
I'm sorry.
There's 2 motions on this.
Yay.
That's what I did last month.
Yes. Just following your lead. I'll blame you. Just kidding.
All right, I'll move to approve the revised version of the amended and restated agreement for shared parking and property maintenance between the Board of Directors of Johnson County Library and the City of Miriam.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, passes. All right, now we can go to the new business. So the formation of the Budget Review Committee. And typically it is, I don't know, does anybody else want to say anything? Or is it, typically it's the chair, vice chair, treasurer. And I think that probably makes the most sense. I believe that you two also want to participate, correct? So. All right.
6 of Budget Committee.
Yes.
I'll be the newbie.
Yes. Well, I think that's, I think we, yes, why don't you make a motion?
I move to form the Budget Review Committee with the following board members: David Sims, Bethany Griffith, and Kelly Kilgore.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.
So the next action item is on page 142, and Scott mentioned this earlier. The first one is the second part of the Gardner capital replacement project. You earlier approved the scope of the work, and this, we're coming back for the temporary closure for that. So you can see in that briefing sheet on page 142, the work that's planned includes ceiling work, some partial roof repair, as well as ADA corrections. We're anticipating the closure to last for about 11 weeks, October and through December.
Any questions? All right. Someone like to make a motion then?
I move to approve the temporary closure of the Gardner Library for a period of up to 11 weeks between October and December to complete planned CRP work.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Last one.
This is on page 143, and so this is also capital replacement projects. This is specifically at Oak Park, and you can see in the middle of the page the work scope, again, HVAC and some electrical system upgrades, ADA improvements, a restroom remodel, which everyone that uses Oak Park will be very thankful for. I think it's the last time you can see maybe a early 1970s bathroom. Maybe late 60s. Well, that you are very close to that. Are you have some interior design in your background, I can tell.
No, it reminds me of the elementary school.
Yes.
I went to way back in
Yes.
80. It smells the same too.
So this work is both interior and exterior, and is anticipated to last 2 to 3 months, hopefully occurring in the fall. Mother Nature, if she bears with us, and this work is all similar to the Gardner work, funded by the existing library capital replacement program.
I move to approve the work order authorization with Kelly Construction Group, Inc. for interior and exterior work at Oak Park Library in an amount not to exceed $820,600.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. Yay. All right, do we have anything else that we've missed? Any other comments? Looks like we got one.
I just wanted to ask if I could get about 10 copies of this to distribute to the Board of County Commissioners. They really appreciated the Elementia that I gave them last couple weeks ago or last month. So love to have this. Thank you.
I doubt they will ever say no to that.
I will just say, too, in this guide, my 5-year-old grandson was very impressed that his Mimi was in the picture with the big check. So he was very excited.
It's all about trying to impress the grandkids, right?
I move that the Library Board of Directors adjourn.
All right. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
No, let's stay here
No.
forever and ever.
Has anybody ever opposed that, by the way? No. All right.
Doubt it.
Meeting adjourned.